Town Hall of Northern Austin. I'm Grayson Pratt. I'm a CEO of a major international company, and I brought this panel together to talk about outsourcing. Outsourcing, in case you didn't know, is when a company from the US takes a job and gets a contract with a company from another country for a job that they may be able to do themselves, but they decided to export due to cost reasons. I brought together this panel. This is Sam Veary. He's the CEO of a local manufacturing company. This is Trent Walker, a human resources executive from IBM. Then we have Jared Villarreal, Director of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Then Joseph Herrera, who's the Vice President of OSHA. They'll each be receiving 3 questions that'll give them 1.5 minutes to answer. After that, I'll politely cut them off. If you could refrain from asking questions during the presentation, we'll have a short Q&A at the end. All right, I'd like to get started with Sam. What do you think are the main benefits of outsourcing?
Hi everyone, my name is Sam Veary. Like you said, I'm the CEO of a local manufacturing company here in Austin. Now to answer your question, supporters of outsourcing will clearly explain that the more free access you have to free markets will make for more cheap labor and more profits that will ultimately fall down on the American consumer. It's pretty simple. The more a cost a manufacturing company can cut out, the cheaper they can offer the American consumer the same product. Let's say, for example, that company A in the US stops outsourcing manufacturing jobs and pays higher wages to manufacture the same quality of product as company B. That in turn will make company A charge a higher price than company B for the same quality of product that company B makes. Can we really expect Americans to pay a higher price for the same quality of product? I don't. But this isn't just about prices. Stephen Leslie, a financial service analyst at the Economist Intelligence Group, says there are more benefits to outsourcing than just cheap prices for American consumers. This is key because a big criticism of outsourcing suggests that all that it gains us is cheaper prices. Furthermore, he went on to say that companies can use the cost savings from outsourcing to staff up in other parts of their company, like research and development, or different aspects of what they're trying to accomplish. Moreover, due to outsourcing, shareholders get higher profits and in turn spend it within the United States, boosting the American economy.
All right, thank you. All right, Jared, why should companies bring jobs to America?
Hello, my name is Jared Villarreal, and I'm a director at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I believe companies should bring jobs to America because as American companies, they have an obligation to do so. As you can see on our new release that came out just 2 months ago, America is suffering from an unemployment rate of over 8%, which is roughly 12.5 million citizens without jobs. Statisticbrain.com has compiled a list of data that they have gathered and found out that over 2 million jobs have been outsourced from America, and that 35% of CFOs have admitted to using outsourcing for their firms. Bringing jobs back to America will help ease the burden on American citizens because they will have money to be effective consumers.
All right. Trent, how can outsourcing help a small company?
Hi, I'm Trent, and I'm an HR executive at IBM, and I'm pro outsourcing. I think that for small startup companies, outsourcing is very important. It can obviously lower costs, but when it comes to a startup company, they're usually very small, and the CEO or founder of that company has a wide variety of responsibilities that they have to take care of. So outsourcing any sort of menial task like email, payroll, or HR is extremely valuable for those small companies. Another good thing about outsourcing for small companies is that it's very profitable for them and it helps them get started, which is very important for the economy in general. Small companies really are very creative and keep the technology industry on the edge, giving a lot of competition to companies like mine, like IBM.
And Joseph, what are your stance on companies outsourcing jobs?
Hello, I'm Joseph Herrera, and I'm the VP at OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and I'm against outsourcing jobs. The one main reason why I'm against outsourcing is because of the worker conditions in the foreign countries. Workers in foreign countries tend to have harsh conditions such as very low wages, dangerous work facilities, they have vigorous work hours, and they are sometimes subjugated to abuse mentally and physically. Another thing is that the countries, they tend to let the companies that outsource regularly pollute the environment, and there's no consequences to this towards the parent company that's here in America. Another thing is that if people find out that a company that outsources, that the harsh things are happening, that they would tend to boycott the parent company in America, and that can lead to loss of revenue and such. And another thing about outsourcing is the reduced quality of the product. A small company here that outsources into a foreign country may not always know what they're going to get in return because they're not always available in the foreign country. So with the inferior product that's given to the parent company when they finally get the finished product could also help lose revenue and profits.
I want to bring it back to Sam. What do you think globalization is in outsourcing?
Well, manufacturing loss in America is occurring in large part because of globalization. According to Robert Morley, columnist from the Trumpet Print, globalization is the increased mobility of goods, services, labor, technology, and capital throughout the world. With that in mind, Jay Bryson, a global economist at Wells Fargo, has said, when jobs move from factories in America to Guatemala or China, it certainly has a negative impact in the short run. However, in the long run, it just makes things more efficient. He went on to say that criticizing the practice of outsourcing is just absurd because outsourcing ultimately does more good than it does harm. Also, through creating jobs in other countries, we are rising the middle class of other countries. This is important because we are closing the gap between the richest countries and the poorest countries in the world. This brings more security to the world as a whole. We live in a global economy today. That's just the way it is. We need to begin to embrace it instead of fight it.
All right, now Jerry, what effects does outsourcing have on America?
Outsourcing has a great negative effect on America. According to CNN, unemployed people have collected over $434 billion of benefits within the past 4 years. And lawmakers want to actually increase the amount of time people have to apply for more, which would cost at least another $44 billion by the end of the year. Last year, $116 billion was collected by the unemployed. That's just last year alone. 17.6 million people have collected unemployment benefits in the past 4 years. $184.7 billion of this have been paid by the taxpayers. The rest is paid by taxing their employers. What this does is damage the economy because the taxes that are used to pay for unemployment benefits reduces the amount of disposable incomes households have. This disposable income actually feeds the economy because that's what they use to spend on different items that they want. Without Americans having jobs, we can't boost the economy.
All right, now Trent, what are some things the service industry is doing to change working conditions?
Well, there's a group called the Fair Labor Association, and they're working in countries like India and China, where a lot of American companies outsource to, and those countries don't have the same labor laws we do in America. But this group is creating conferences in those countries where they invite owners and managers of the companies that we outsource to train and educate them on how to better manage their companies so that they have better working conditions. There's another group based out of England. They're called Unition, and they're a union. They're specialized in call center employee conditions. They've recently had a strike and have created a guideline for companies to abide by that promotes better working conditions. Also, not a lot of people realize that outsourcing doesn't necessarily mean sending something outside of the country, it just means sending something outside of the company. And there's a lot of companies in America that provide outsourcing services with a lot better quality for workers and quality products. One of those companies is the Contact Centers of America. And another one that people don't realize is Xerox has been doing this for years. You can get all of your copying and IT services done through them, and that's an American company, and they have to abide by the same laws that your company does.
Okay, Joseph, what are some of the recent events that have backed your stance?
Well, Apple is one of the U.S.'s biggest companies, and according to the Telegraph, the Apple Foxconn factories, which are located in China, they have become known as suicide factories. In the recent year, there have been 16 people who have attempted suicide at the factories, and 12 people have died, and another 20 have been prevented from attempting suicide by the company. This just is because of the very harsh conditions in which they work in and they also live in, because they work where they live. And but the only good day that the Foxconn employees has is on the 10th of each month. That's when they get paid, but they only get paid about $130 of equivalent to the Chinese currency. And this is $130 for 240 hours of work per month. The math is disturbing. This means that they are roughly making about 51 cents an hour for 70 hours a week. And it's just been recently where Apple has mandated that the maximum overtime at the Foxconn factories will be 20 hours. So that means that Foxconn employees have to work only 60 hours a week now, but they're still only getting paid 51 cents an hour. So they're losing money, but they're still forced to work vigorous hours.
Okay, now Sam, with the job market in the U.S. being as difficult as it is, why would you embrace developing jobs outside of the country?
Well, history has many examples of the world changing where some companies, civilizations, or even countries for that matter, don't recognize the change or for political reasons won't accept it. Therefore, they don't prepare their people to make the necessary adjustments to take advantage of that change. If we know the change is coming, shouldn't we do everything possible in order to be on the winning side of the change instead of letting that same change hurt us? This leads me to my next point. Globalization of our economy is taking place whether we like it or not. According to many economists from Wells Fargo, the middle class in America will shrink over the next 25 years. However, the middle class in the Asia Pacific will grow to over 6 times what it is today. This statistic alone suggests that we should be investing in that massive audience. My question for the audience is, do you think that if America stops taking advantage of globalization, that the rest of the world will follow? I don't, and how will we compete then? Either we in the United States find a way to capitalize on these changes, or we'll be left behind.
I know, Jared, how does the unemployment program work?
When a person is fired through no fault of their own, say if what their job is gets outsourced, they're able to apply for unemployment benefits. According to CNN, the first 26 weeks of unemployment benefits comes through the state. After that, they're eligible for 53 weeks of federal benefits for what is called emergency benefits. After that, they're able to apply for a 20-week extension. It's only after these 99 weeks that they're ineligible for more benefits, and that's unless the lawmakers don't extend the deadline. As I said before, 17.6 million people have used this system. That's 17.6 million people collecting benefits for over a year. In conclusion, bringing jobs to America is beneficial not only to the individual who gets the job, but to America as a whole.
Now, Trent, what technology companies have good outsourcing techniques in mind?
Well, one of the ones that has been in the news recently, and Joseph just mentioned, is Apple, and they've been in a lot of heat because of Foxconn and the working conditions there. But more recently, because of this news and because they know that their customers care about working conditions, they've gotten more involved in Foxconn, and they've invested more money and worked with Foxconn to build better on-site dormitories for the employees, because a lot of people travel there and work for a short period of time. And as he said, they've been lowering the maximum number of overtime hours per month. Also, what a lot of people don't realize is that many companies simply look for more profit, not necessarily because wages are lower. So according to Mark L. Fisher, a professor at Wharton, wages have risen 5 to 6 times in China in the last 20 years, and in America it has only risen 50% in the last 20 years. So an example of a company that has actually moved into America is GE. They've moved a lot of their manufacturing plants from Mexico back to America, and that's because they save money in ways other than wages, like transportation, and they can get better quality control in America, so it makes sense for them. And that's a good example of a company getting involved, and because it's cheaper for them, actually having better working conditions.
And Joseph, with our last question, why is it so hard to regulate outsourced jobs?
Well, many outsourced workers feel as if the government isn't doing their part, even though that it's clear that the authorities can see when companies that outsource are breaking laws who have low wages and horrible working conditions. But the companies, they don't really care, and the outsourced workers, they do have some rights in certain countries, but they're very unaware of these rights, and the company doesn't make it hesitant to make the outsourced workers about their rights. Another thing is Singiz. She is the Turkish Outsourced Workers Union chairwoman, and according to her, she's saying that many outsourced workers, they're not able to apply to get into unions because they aren't considered full-time employees of actual companies. They're merely contracted workers. And these outsourced workers, they aren't able to get benefits that the unions would have, and the unions don't want to help outsourced workers because they would rather help themselves first. And another thing is that companies, they have bad track records when it comes to outsourcing. They don't keep track of when there are on-the-job injuries or when there are diseases from the job, such as the coal miners, when they get lung diseases. They don't keep track of any of this, and they don't give benefits out. They merely just replace the worker. But not every outsourced worker is kept silent. In Kappa, recently there's been a protest of 1,000 workers in the manufacturing plant, and these workers have said that they will continue to slow down manufacturing unless they are realized to be full-time employees of the actual company.
All right, in conclusion, we had Sam here who talked about the benefits of outsourcing and globalization. We had Trent who talked about the benefits of the outsourcing of the technology and manufacturers. Joseph talked about the negatives of outsourcing and anything that could possibly go wrong. And then we had Jared who talked about bringing the jobs back to America to try to strengthen our economy. We'd like to thank our panelists for answering and ask any questions if you have them now. Let's go with you.
This question's for Joseph. Is there anything being done to help outsourced workers?
All right, Joseph, is there anything being done to help outsourced workers?
Well, right now in China, according to the Chinese newspaper, there are lawmakers in China who are drafting new amendments to their labor contract laws in which they want to help the outsourced workers, because 60% of their workforce is outsourced workers from different companies, not just only in America. But what they want to do is they wanted to make it to where there's less contracted workers and that the parent company has to actually hire the worker as a full-time employee. This means that the actual worker will get more benefits and would possibly get higher wages. They also want to make it to where the company can't contract a worker for longer than 6 months at a time, because after that they feel that that's too much work, because they are working every week for 70 hours a week or more.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
This is for Sam. What do you have to say in response to those Americans who have lost their jobs due to outsourcing?
All right, Sam, what do you have to say in response to Americans who have lost their jobs outsourcing?
Well, earlier I mentioned that companies can save money from outsourcing to staff up in other parts of their business. This point hit home for me, especially when Stephen Leslie, who I mentioned earlier, talked about a forthcoming paper in the American Economic Review that looked at 57 American industries from the year 2000 to 2007. The study found that even though people lost jobs due to outsourcing, the greater efficiencies that the industries as a whole realized due from outsourcing allowed them to hire more people in the United States than they actually laid off. The quote that I actually found really interesting is, one could say, fire a couple, hire a dozen. So outsource a couple jobs to hire a dozen more in a different aspect of your company. Leslie went on to say that people tend to count losses, but they don't tend to count gains. When we outsource manufacturing, there are a couple of people who are going to have hurt, but there are a lot more people who are helped from it. And one last statistic from the U.S. Labor Department: jobs moved overseas accounted for less than 2% of the approximate 230,000 layoffs in the first quarter of 2004. The same data states that the transfer of jobs within the U.S., so relocated jobs, account for 62% of the jobs lost. So I would say to them that it's likely that the people losing their jobs likely lost their jobs to someone else in America.
Anyone else?
I have a question for Trent. How can companies provide high-quality outsourced customer service?
All right, Trent, how can companies provide high-quality outsourced customer service?
Well, outsourcing has become a major industry on its own. So there are dozens and dozens of companies per service that you want that are competing for your business. So they spend a lot of money training their employees and at getting really good at their jobs. Also, because you're outsourcing the service, if it's something menial that you would put on the job description of someone who's doing something else already, you're going to get higher quality from someone who's that's their main job.
Any other questions?
Yes, this one's for Jared. What industries have been most affected by outsourcing?
Alright, Jared, what industries have been most affected by outsourcing?
The two most affected industries have been manufacturing and IT services. 53% of manufacturing jobs have been outsourced, and 43% of IT services have been outsourced. Other major industries have been research and development, distribution, and call and help centers. Most of these companies that outsource this not only claim to be for cost effectiveness, but also to free up internal services or reduce time to market.
Alright, any other questions? Okay, I'd like to thank our panelists once again. Thank you for listening, and that concludes today's